Hello, Canucks fans. Welcome back to another episode of Canucks Conversation, brought to you by Bet365. We're coming to you from the Pacific Toyota Dealer Studios. Visit shoptoyota.ca or visit your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. My name is Dave Pedrelli. I'm joined by Harman Dial. And Harman, just like we expected, the Canucks have won 3 straight. They've kicked off the road trip with 3 wins. And I'll jog everyone's memory right off the top here, because ahead of this road trip, as we were previewing it, we said, okay, 5 games, they were coming off back-to-back losses, and we said, what's a successful record for the Canucks? When we had Jeff Pettersson on the show, he made the point as well, one that you echoed, was doesn't really matter what the record is, but how they get there matters. So the process of how they get there, even if it's just 2 wins, but they look good in those games. Instead, it's 3 wins. And I would say the process has looked really good. A lot to get to, I think, from the Washington game, and that's going to be the one that I think we focus on. But overall, a really successful start to the road trip. And my question for you, Harm, is what have you thought about their process en route to these 3 wins?
It hasn't been perfect, but we can touch on some of where that process could still be fine-tuned a little bit later. For me, for them to just claim 6 of 6 points, especially in the fashion that they did it, again, the way that they came back, especially in the Dallas game, is wildly impressive. And I don't want to start by sort of touching on couple areas where they could clean up. I really want to focus on just the resilience to be able to go in, and before the road trip, we were talking about, all right, if they're 500, that's at least enough to not panic. And if they win 3 of 5, that's a successful road trip. You'll take that any day of the week. They've already won 3 of 3, regardless of what happens in the Pittsburgh
house
game.
Money, baby.
You're playing with house money now. Now, of course, you want to build up and as early of a lead as possible in the regular season. But for me, it's a fact that I was calling this a gut check road trip, and I was referring to how the 2023-24 Canucks were in a similar position after their first 4 games, and how that road trip, turning things around against Florida, was the key to them getting on a roll in October and really set the stage for them to have a successful year where they not only made the playoffs, but won the Pacific Division. So that's wildly important. And there have been so many ingredients that have contributed to it. Stellar goaltending, the power play has gotten back on track. Connor Garland has been the engine of this team up front. Elias Pettersson has played a lot better and had an outstanding performance, especially, I thought, on Sunday against the Capitals. So many positives to sort of go through. And of course, it's unfortunate because it was overshadowed by some extent all the injuries they suffered against Washington. But all in all, they really needed a bounce back like this.
I want to make sure we get the injuries out of the way. So let's just go through those injuries that you're talking about. Because there's a lot of positives. There's a ton of positives to get to, but I think just it's important right now to get to what is the news of the day, and that's that the Canucks have made a flurry of roster moves, and there's going to be more coming. By the time you listen to this, if you're listening to it a day late, there might be more already, but as of Monday, the roster moves that the Canucks made, I just want to quickly go through them, because obviously they lost Philip Hedl due to a hit from Tom Wilson. We're going to get to that. That's its own individual topic that I want to touch on, but excuse me. They've recalled Joseph Lebate, Jimmy Schultz from Abbotsford. It's important to remember the rules with papering now. Like, you can't do paper transactions. So I think IMAC reported that the Canucks asked for permission for this to be a paper transaction, but they sent Victor Mancini down. He has to play a game before he gets recalled. Abbotsford doesn't play till Friday, so he's not going to be recalled. I would assume Derek Forbert's ready to go and that Jimmy Schultz is just a paper transaction. I don't think Jimmy Schultz is going to play an NHL game for the Canucks on this road trip. I think he's going to get sent down tomorrow, because there's no rules about going back down. It's just rules about once you go down, you have to play a game in the AHL. So Jimmy Schultz will obviously do that, but now Victor Mancini has to do that as well because he was sent down. I'm doing a terrible job explaining this, I know, so bear with me, folks. But just listing off the moves, Hedl and Lekkerimäki both placed on injured reserve, retroactive to October 19th, yesterday. Victor Mancini assigned to Abbotsford, got to play on Friday, might be available Saturday if they want him. Joe Lebate and Jimmy Schultz have been recalled from Abbotsford. Not sure if either are going to get in. Lebate would be the one that I look at and say, oh, okay, he had a good preseason, like he might get in. Nils Höglander placed on LTIR as well. So really the way to sum this up is the moves the Canucks made today is putting them in the best spot for LTIR room if they need to place Filipino on LTIR, because they weren't in LTIR with Höglander, but now you add Hedl to that, they're gonna have to at least have the door open to go into LTIR with Filipino.
Yeah, and there's going to be more moving parts. As you said,
Amon's coming up tomorrow, I think.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I would expect. And also on the Mancini front, yes, it's mostly like cap gymnastics related for why he got sent down, but it's also worth pointing out that in that Washington game, and I know in the second period he had the fight, so he was in the box for 5 minutes as well, but I believe he was under 10 minutes of ice time against the Capitals. I counted only 3 or 4 shifts that he played in the second half of the game. So Adam Foote really shortened his bench and went to 5 defensemen in that game against the Caps. So it's not a case of Mancini was playing so well and Adam Foote was relying on him and they really wanted to keep him in the lineup, but just for cap gymnastic purposes, they sent him down. Mancini's ice time would have already been notable, and if he hadn't been sent down, it was something that I clocked right away as, okay, I wonder what this means for how much longer he's going to be in the lineup.
Yeah, under 7 minutes. For,
it was under 7.
Yeah, for Mancini.
Wow.
Yeah. That's funny. That's one of the only times you bring up something and I have to actually clarify. Usually it's me that's
under 10 isn't under 10 isn't wrong. It's just it's just even lower than I thought.
But you could have said under 20 and been like, oh, I'm not wrong. Anyways, yeah, you're absolutely right, Harm. You're absolutely right. So a lot of moving parts is basically what we're trying to say. Now let's get back on the rails a bit here, because back-to-back nights, Dallas and Chicago, the Canucks go down 2-0 in the first period. Mind you, they don't look good in the first period of either game. But again, I did want to point this out. The second half of I believe it was the Dallas game, the second half of that first period, they looked good. Like they were doing a lot of good things. PD scores on Demko. And again, that was one that seemed like, okay, everything is going wrong for this guy. How's he going to respond? And the good news was he responded with a really strong game in Chicago. Didn't get a point to show for it, but was cutting to the middle, was doing things that you want to see him do against the Chicago Blackhawks. That translated to Washington. Another strong game for Elias Pettersson. Folks, before you come at me and say, oh, the bar's got to be higher, of course it's got to be higher. But it's like Harmon keeps saying, it's the training wheels aspect. It's you got to start building something. And he started to build something this week. And that was a really positive takeaway, I thought, was Pettersson's strong game. As Jacob shows us his goal against the Capitals in the opening minute there.
Yeah, not just the goal, but the elite level defensive play. And it's funny because you could look at the underlying numbers after that game and look at his line's performance and say, oh, they got hemmed in their own end. But this is why it's so important to also watch the games, because he was a two-way beast in my mind. He was terrific winning board battles. There was that one shift in the second period where he was warding off 2 Caps defenders at the same time, looked legitimately strong on his feet. The shot blocks where he's sprawling out on Ovechkin in the dying moments of that game when the Capitals are frantically pushing. Especially the second one where he's stacking the pads. Love that one. He's picking off passes in the D zone.
On Ovi. He stacks the pads on Ovi, dude.
It was awesome. Those are gutsy big boy blocks. And he's had on this road trip a lot of them. So that's really encouraging to see. But even the flashes off the rush. In the first period, he made a nifty neutral zone pass to send a streaking DeBruskin for probably one of the Canucks' best scoring chances of the game. And then in the third period, I like the fact that we're now at the point that he's playing off his instincts and challenging defenders one-on-one again. I take that as a sign that his confidence is starting to pick up again. I loved him trying that between the legs deke in the third period to drive to the middle.
Almost worked.
And that's what I was saying right before about, well, why does Pettersson look off? Number one, I pointed out that, okay, because of the lack of explosiveness in skating, he isn't able to just, as in terms of straight line speed, separate from defenders. But the other part was challenging and taking defenders on one-on-one using his dekes. He has to be creative in that sense to get to the inside. That's a textbook example, because if he doesn't make that kind of elite skill play to the middle, he's stuck on the perimeter with the puck and there is no scoring opportunity. So in the absence of elite line speed, he needs to have that confidence to challenge and beat defenders one-on-one. And I like seeing that. I love seeing his OT shift against Chicago. He had the puck on a string. And overall, just his puck management and control and poise on the power play, even going back to the Dallas game, has been moving in a positive direction. So 100%, there's a lot of room for him to keep building and become a more consistent game breaker, but he's trending in the right direction. And that's really important after the first 3 games where he looked concerningly quiet.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also wanted to say, excuse me, we got some breaking news. Nils Amon, Tom Willander just got recalled by the Canucks. So, yeah, I thought it was going to come tomorrow. Came today. So worth mentioning that's already happened. I, again, don't think Willander is going to get into a game. You would assume it's going to be Derek Forbort that's healthy again. But the Canucks are hurting right now. I want to talk more positives about this game because Garland and Pettersson together, that duo, the Canucks are getting a ton from them, and I think that's unlocked the best version of Pettersson. Dare I also say that Pettersson has unlocked the best version of Connor Garland?
I think it's more Garland helping Pettersson than the other way around, but they've definitely meshed together, and I'm sure there is some secondary help that Garland has had. He's been a self-starter, man. Garland, I think overall he's been undeniably their best forward so far this season. I mean, through 6 games, he leads the team with 6 points. He's averaging 20-14 per game, which leads all forwards. He's got a team high 19 shots, 258 per game on the PK that he's averaging, which again leads all forwards. He's just impacting the game in every facet of like PK, power play, even strength. I love watching him in the hash marks down in the offensive zone. That's where his bread and butter is. The turnovers that he's able to force with both his anticipation of knowing where the opposition is going to try and make their next pass on the breakout, combined with his dogged hustle and compete level, allows him to just force so many turnovers. And when you combine that with, all right, when he does get the puck down low in those situations, he's got the playmaking vision. He's got the slippery edge work and the sweet hands and tight to translate that to offense. And Elias Pettersson's first goal against Washington is a textbook example of that. It doesn't happen without Garland's hard work to intercept Washington's pass on the breakout and then feed Pettersson in the slot. And that's exactly why I was optimistic about those two as a duo, because he takes play driving load off Pettersson. And if it was, let's say, any other winger besides Garland in that spot, I'm not confident that they force the turnover and can feed Pettersson in the slot. And so that scoring chance doesn't happen in the first place if it isn't for the hard work of Garland there. Plus the work that he does pressuring the top in the offensive zone. Pay attention to that. I think that's why he's so effective in the D zone as well. With 22 seconds left, the Caps were furiously pressing. They were generating all these chances. They had the Canucks on the ropes. And if you'll notice, it's Garland who picks off 2 Washington passes in a row, forces them out of the zone and forces them offside to close the game and seal a victory. Those are just the little plays he makes every shift to help this team win.
Let's get to our guest today. We're going to continue the Canucks conversation, I'm sure. No pun intended, actually. We're going to continue that later. And anyone else, we'll get to more of that. You've also got the stat of the day coming up later. But before that, I want to get to our guest today, who's brought to you by our friends at Greta, a great spot for all games, home and away. You can skip the line and not have to pay cover on game nights if you're wearing the home team's gear. And of course, there's also the game day specials at Greta, including $3.33 off select food items, $3.33 on select drinks, and more. Got the arcade, the bar, the street food menu. It's a great spot. Make it your spot to watch the next game. 50 West Cordova Street is the address. Let the games begin. All right. Pete Blackburn joins us with some exciting news as the What Chaos Show is joining the Nation Network. Pete, first of all, welcome and talk to us about that.
Yeah, very, very excited to join the network. I mean, we've been big fans of the Nation and its lineup for a long time. And, Jay Downton has believed in our show since before it even existed, which is really important to us because we do a weird show. We'll be honest. We do a weird show. We go to weird places. It's not for everyone. And we've known that from the outset. So the idea that Jay and the nation and basically everybody there has believed in it from the beginning. Has meant a lot to us, and having the opportunity to join the network after a couple of years over at All City is really an awesome opportunity for us.
Pete, I always love when we have a guest on with more of a national lens to get their view on the Canucks. What is your overall big picture take on how you view this Canucks team this year?
It's sort of like like a TBD kind of situation, because like I've followed this team pretty closely for the last couple of years, and last year I feel like I was just ready to throw out last year completely, because just so many things went wrong, and it just felt like this would be a good opportunity to kind of hit the reset button and find out what the true outlook of this team is. Obviously, like early returns here are pretty solid for the most part, but I mean, like the injuries early on and kind of how depleted the lineup is looking already is not amazing. Like, I'm a little concerned. I'm sure that Canucks fans are too. But yeah, I mean, like, I definitely think that this is a team that can absolutely compete and be a nightmare for any given team on any given night. It's just that they can also, like last year, they look like an absolute disaster on any given night too. Like, they look like they could beat any team in the league one night, and then the next game they look like they could lose to the Sharks. Like, it was just kind of the way that it was.
Pete, a really big positive early in the season has been Thatcher Demko. He was at training camp talking about how he wanted to be on that U.S. Olympic roster and how he felt if he plays at his level that he knows he's capable of, he'll be there. They added him to the preliminary roster. It's an interesting kind of battle. The one we're going to highlight, Demko versus Swayman for the third goalie spot, maybe higher. What have you seen from Swayman this year? Because obviously we all know, especially on this show, everybody listening to this show knows that Demko's had a really hot start. Who do you think has the inside track in that battle?
Well, if we're going off of like extreme recency bias, I Swayman had a really good start to the season for the Bruins, and has kind of come back down to earth like a little bit. But you know, obviously he did not have a good year last year for the most part. But like, the way that I keep describing Swayman's season last year is just that it was full of instability, based off of the contract situation that they came out of the summer with. And yeah, like, he didn't have a good year, but there was a 2-month sample from December to February where, like, the Bruins actually did have some decent footing, and he was one of the best goaltenders in the league. Like, he was really solid. So I definitely still believe in Jeremy Swayman, but based off of the last 2 years, it would be hard for me to say that, like, Demko does not have the edge based off of like a 2-year sample. But also, if we're doing that, why is Dustin Wolf not in the mix? Like, why is Dustin Wolf not over both of those guys at this point? And I don't know the answer to that. And I'm really not sure where this is going to end up. But Demko and Swayman, if it's a dead heat right now, I'd give the edge to Demko just based off of the last couple of years.
I had the same thought about Dustin Wolf. Sorry, Harm, I want to follow up on this. What have you made of Dustin Wolf's start? Like, that's been a really interesting storyline this year. Is Calgary's been piss poor defensively, obviously, but usually, like, they weren't great last year either, but he was behind them, and this year he just hasn't really been there.
Yeah, I mean, like, based off of how ungodly good he was for that team last year,
Yeah.
and basically dragged them to within 1 point of a playoff spot when they were one of the worst offensive teams in the league. Like, the regression is somewhat predictable, but I would expect for it to level off, for them to meet somewhere in the middle where he's not going to be that good for the entire season, but he's probably not going to be as shaky as he's been, especially if the defense figures it out. So yeah, I think that Calgary is just in a weird spot where, like, their team stinks and Dustin Wolf is basically their team.
Yeah.
After Filipino's injury, the Canucks center situation obviously looks pretty bleak beyond Elias Pettersson. You're a really close observer of the Bruins, obviously, and we noticed Casey Middlestat was healthy scratch last night in Boston. If you were the Canucks, would you kick tires on Middlestat?
Well, I mean, I guess my follow-up question there is, like, what are you expecting to get back? Like, when you think of Casey Middlestat, like what do you think you're getting?
Well, that's the tough part is it feels like he's been a volatile player in the sense that there was that one year where he was leading Buffalo in scoring and was piling up all these points, 50 plus. And then he went to Colorado, and for a while it looked like, okay, it's working out for him as a 2C. And then last year was sort of a disaster for him, both in Colorado, and then it didn't seem from the outside as if he was really gelling in Boston either. And I look at Middlestat as a player that if he's not giving you 50 plus points, then he's too one-dimensional to really be adding value. Like, he has to be like a 50, 60 point guy off his playmaking. Otherwise, there just isn't enough of this defensive play and lack of forechecking and lack of pace to really be a consistent top 9 level contributor. And personally, it's concerning to me that, I mean, the Boston Bruins have some of the worst center depth in the NHL. And if Casey Middlestat can't be a difference maker there, especially with that contract, like, that worries me. But I also haven't watched the Bruins night in and night out, so I don't know the specifics of what's gone on there.
Yeah, so like that part, the last part is pretty bang on, where it's like if the Bruins are like looking to shed a center, what does that say about the center? But here's what I'll say about Casey Middlestat in the situation from what I've been able to gather, because like I watched him before he came to the Bruins as well. I'll compare him to another guy, another Bruins center, a former Bruins center, that I think like they're very different players, but Charlie Coyle sort of had a little bit of the Casey Middlestat syndrome, for lack of a better term, where in Minnesota, Charlie Coyle, like, there was the skill there for sure. It was just that it came in flashes and it was too far in between in the way that when you saw it. And when he came to Boston, like, the Bruins were able to get him at a pretty low price. Ryan Donato, who, you know, obviously has turned into a pretty good NHL player. But, you know, so Charlie Coyle really rounded out his game in Boston, and the effort and the compete was there way more consistently in Boston than it was in Minnesota. And I really think that for a Casey Middlestat to truly become a sustainable top 6 or like even top 9 NHL player, he has to have the game round out a little bit more. The compete and the effort level is not always there. And that is arguably the most frustrating guy to watch, where it's like on any given night, he can be a difference maker, but then a night or two later, it looks like he's a shell of himself. And he really just doesn't have the game around like the offensive contribution and the speed for it to really hit consistently. And so, like, if the Canucks are in a situation where they just need a body in there with maybe a high ceiling, I think that it would make sense. But if you're expecting a guy to come in and be a consistent part of that top 6 or top 9 without having those frustrations, I don't know if he's your guy.
What do you think he'd cost, Pete?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to it, especially because I don't know where the Bruins stand on Casey Middlestat. Like, obviously, he's not been there for very long. I don't think that they're tired of him, but I also don't think that they're like married to him either. So, like, if things go south for the Bruins and they're completely out of contention and they're just like, you know, obviously looking at a more clear rebuild and they can get a couple of assets or even like a couple younger players or whatever it is, I think it would make sense for the Bruins, and I think they'd be willing to swing that deal. But I wouldn't imagine that it would cost a whole lot, especially if the Bruins want to move off them.
The Kings have started 1-3-2. That's a team that Canucks fans are keeping an eye on in the Pacific Division. Could you see the Kings actually missing the playoffs this year? What have you seen from them so far?
I'll tell you what, their back end is a disaster. Yeah. And it's a disaster. And I don't know like what a quick fix would be or what it would look like. It's just, I think that their blue line got so much worse over the offseason, and like that can kill a team. And so if you're going to tell me that like at the end of the season, they're not going to be in the mix because of their blue line, I would absolutely believe it. And it would be a pretty like abject disaster for a team that felt pretty close to being able to knock off the Oilers in the first round last year before things went totally south. Like, that's a botched job. And I think that it's absolutely in play based off of what we've seen. So like, keep your eyes on them, and I would say that the target is on the Kings if you're the Canucks.
All right, speaking of teams that could miss the playoffs, Tampa Bay. I was so high on Tampa Bay heading into this year. Did their slow start concern you at all?
Not as much as an LA, or like I think that Tampa can figure it out. I also just think that, like, when you boil it down to their identity, they're a one-line team, and that feels like pretty disrespectful, but the majority of their production comes from one line. And like, they have good players beyond that one line. They just haven't really been able to put it together in a way that makes me like really buy into where they're at right now. What I'll say though with the Eastern Conference is that I don't think that there are very many like big dogs in the Eastern Conference. I feel like most of the big dogs are out west. And so, like, even if Tampa doesn't fully figure it out, and even if they have like a little bit of paper tiger to them, like, I don't see them missing the playoffs because they have enough talent there to get in.
Got a horse in the MLB postseason at this point?
I'm honestly kind of rooting for the Blue Jays just to, one, like, further motivate the Red Sox to start spending money and really pushing in again. And also, I think it's so funny if like every team in Toronto wins before the Leafs. So that's the reason that I'm pulling for the Blue Jays.
I love it. Pete, thanks, man. Appreciate you doing this.
Of course. Thanks for having me, guys.
There he is, Pete Blackburn, the host of What Chaos, which joined the Nation Network today. Very happy to welcome Pete to the network. Okay, that's the best reason I've ever heard, by the way. I just want to revisit that last answer. That's the silver lining. I'm wearing my Mariners shirt today, but like, if the Jays win tonight, that's the silver lining. Is it would be hilarious if every team wins before the Leafs. But
Well, they already technically have, haven't they? Those World Series in 92 or in the
92 and 93, yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. But doing it again would be even
Doing it
funnier.
again.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, and especially because within the last 10 years, you had Toronto FC win MLS, you've had the Raptors win the NBA.
Yeah, and also during all of that time, what have you had? The Leafs core being propped up as, oh my gosh, they're gonna do it. This is gonna be a dynasty. The whole time you had that, so that's what makes it way funnier. I love it. Yeah, big game tonight. Big game tonight. We'll talk about it and anyone else, but I want to bring the conversation back to the Canucks. We have our stat of the day. Take it away, Harm.
Stat of the day is a presentation of Uber Eats. Uber Eats is enabling fans to maximize their fandom all season long with exclusive game day deals on the app. From game day eats to paper plates and napkins, if you're hosting, to all the ingredients you need to make your favorite game day dip before, during, and after the game. Uber Eats is assisting every fan's hockey experience all season long. Hashtag crave the stats. All right, so no, that's not required this time. Especially I stumbled over it once. It wasn't perfect.
You crushed it. Yeah, no, dude. You know what? If you ever stumble over it, just don't point it out, and nobody notices. I didn't notice, but I never listen anyway. So, anyways, go
exactly,
on,
yeah. Okay, so we've talked a lot about the Canucks power play and this idea of the fourth forward to round out the unit. And at the start of the season, it was Evander Kane. Then we saw Filipino for a little bit, and we also had discussions around should Jonathan Lecker-Mackey get that opportunity. It shocked me to see over the last 2 seasons how much better the Canucks power play has performed, the first unit specifically, when Connor Garland has been on it. And I've never thought of Connor Garland as that effective of an option for power play one, because we know that he lacks power with the shot and penalty kills don't really respect it, which means a little bit less space for opponents. But I was digging through the numbers, and so since last season, Garland has played 188 minutes on the power play with Quinn Hughes, which would represent first unit time. During that sample, the Canucks first unit has scored 34 goals, which translates to 10.9 goals per 60. Now, for context, there were only 4 teams in the NHL last year that scored more than 10 goals per 60 minutes on the man advantage last year. So that anything over 10 is a really efficient rate. Now, when Garland isn't on the first unit, so I'm looking at Quinn Hughes' power play minutes without Garland as a proxy for that. The Canucks first unit power play has only scored 7 goals and allowed 5 against in 92 minutes since last season. And this isn't just a luck or shooting efficiency based bump either. There's a significant boost in the number of shots and expected goals generated by the first unit when Garland is on the ice with them. And I was just, it came as a massive surprise to see the disparity be that large. And I think when you try and diagnose and figure out, all right, why, like, how does Garland make an impact? Number one, it's on the entries. You look at the Jake DeBrusk power play goal against Chicago. It wasn't just Garland centering it to DeBrusk and picking up the assist there. He was the reason that they were able to move up the neutral zone and have a clean entry in the first place. We saw in the first 3 games when Evander Kane was on that first unit instead of Connor Garland, how much they struggled on entries. So I think Garland helps on entries and he helps on puck retrievals. Plus, he's a pretty good passer. I think those attributes have outshined the fact that he doesn't have a powerful shot.
Do you think that can last? Like, maybe I'm wrong, but it feels like we had a similar conversation about Connor Garland last season before he totally wore out his welcome on PP1. How long do you think this is going to last?
Well, you look at 180, we're talking 188 minutes of power play time. So 188 divided by 2, that's the equivalent of around 94 full 2-minute power plays of a sample size. That's pretty significant, man. 94. And yeah, there are going to be lulls for any power play. It doesn't matter if you've got a top 5 ranked power play in the NHL. You're going to have stretches where your power play doesn't look good. And so, yeah, Garland had stretches last year where it didn't look perfect. And I'm not saying that he's the perfect solution on power play 1, because on most contending teams, you would have star forwards ahead of him who would have the shot and all the other attributes. But this Canucks team just doesn't have enough elite forward talent, especially after replacing JT Miller.
Yeah.
And because of that, I think he's the best of what they have right now, at least until Jonathan Lekkerimäki gets to the point where you can rely on him as an everyday consistent contributor. And especially now that Lekkerimäki's hurt, I don't think that we're at the point where you're expecting Lekkerimäki to come rescue the day for power play 1 anytime soon. So in the meantime, Garland's your clear answer, in my opinion. I hated the look of Evander Kane on that first unit.
Yeah.
Philip Hedl, we know, is hurt now, but even when he was healthy, I don't know if he has made as much of an impact as Garland.
Oh, 100%. 100% agreed. And also, yeah, the important thing to mention is, if it's not Garland right now, who is it? And the answer is there's not many options.
And to clarify, the take isn't Connor Garland is an amazing power play player. The takeaway is he's the best out of a suboptimal group of options you have.
Yeah. And the power plays just look so good. Like, I think that's the exciting thing, right?
Well, and what changed? 2 things changed. One, Garland came on that unit. And second, I think Pettersson's handled the puck way better. So that's your 2 flanks. And when your 2 flanks are going on the power play, you're able to zip it east-west really well. You're able to be cleaner on entries. You can hold on to pucks. You have more sustained pressure. I think he's a big reason that the power play has turned around recently.
Want to get to anyone else?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Anyone else is a presentation of Pacific Toyota dealers and the Toyota Prius plug-in hybrid, a no-compromise approach to electric vehicles that offers the best of both worlds. Drive up to 72 kilometers on the battery alone and then seamlessly transition from electric mode to the gas engine for a combined range of 962 kilometers. There's no sacrifices when it comes to horsepower or style with its sleek, low, and wide exterior and sophisticated interior. It's loaded with tech that's actually easy to use. You can plug in to recharge at home or at one of the over 2,000 public charging stations in BC alone. And now you can lease a 2025 Prius plug-in hybrid SE from $99 weekly at 3.49% APR for 64 months with $3,600 down. And it includes a $3,000 discount. Visit shoptoyota.ca or your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. All right, I want to continue our conversation that we were having about this road trip because there's a lot of positives, but there is also the injury news. I want to get to the Hedl hit in a second, but I'm just going to rattle it off for those that missed it. Philip Hedl out, Jonathan Lekkerimäki out. Both of those guys, according to Patrick Alvin via Sportsnet and McIntyre today, both of those guys have flown back to Vancouver for further evaluation. Of course, Canucks back home on Saturday. They're going to miss some time. Teddy Bluger is doubtful to play Tuesday in Pittsburgh. Dan Murphy reported that Bluger was banged up toward the end of the game in Washington. So you're without Bluger, you're without Hedel, you're without Lekermacki on Tuesday in Pittsburgh. And then Alvin said Brock Bescher's return from his leave of absence Tuesday in Pittsburgh is a possibility. I don't want to speculate. I don't know if he's going to be back. We don't know if he's going to be back. A possibility doesn't mean he is going to be back. So I don't know. It kind of makes it hard to have a conversation about like, oh, what's the lineup going to look like on Tuesday? Because I don't want to assume that Brock's going to be back. But I don't know. That's all we have right now. I think we'll get some clarity tomorrow on if he's going to be back, but we'll see with Besser. Because I think what it really hinges on like is if he flew home for whatever it was, right? Did he, and home being Minnesota, or did he fly back to Vancouver? Do you know what I mean? Like this kind of matters because it's either, okay, you flew home to Vancouver, now you come meet the team in Pittsburgh, or you meet them in Nashville, or you flew to Minnesota and meet them in Pittsburgh. It's a lot quicker. We don't know. So I'm not going to sit here and speculate. I'm just saying we don't know just yet. So that's basically all the updates. I want to dive in on this Hedel collision with Tom Wilson. It was a really interesting one because at first I was like, oh, that was so late. That was so dirty. And then I was like, okay, it's less late than I thought. It's to the body. And it's a really unfortunate collision, but I don't know, maybe like 2 minutes would have been a fine penalty, but like, I wasn't surprised that there was no suspension. I wasn't surprised that it wasn't a major penalty. And we'll get to what Adam Foote said after the game as well, because Foote, I think Foote actually called it a clean hit. So we'll get to Foote's direct quote, but what were your thoughts on this one?
It looked way worse in real time than it did once you watched it back. It was late for sure. Deserved a 2-minute penalty, but I don't think it was worthy of a major or a suspension or anything like that.
Yeah, it wasn't to the head. It was less late than I thought. Like, it was still late. And again, someone in the chat says it was charging. Pull the hit back up, Jacob. I don't think that's charging. Like, he strides into it. And someone pointed out that Wilson was yelling because the Department of Player Safety said, like, if you're going to hit a guy that doesn't know you're coming and it's still going to be a clean hit, just yell to let him know you're coming. And apparently that's what he did here. But I don't think that's charging.
He's not taking explosive strides into him.
Yeah, it's not charging. But, like, it's a second late, I think. But, again, I'm talking about a second, so I would think it's interference. But 2 minutes for interference. Here's what Adam Foote had to say after the game. This is important, I think.
Where players and you get caught in with a lead like that, getting caught in the trap of a hit like that, running after them and trying to get them, and we have to get the 2 points first, and then that other stuff takes care of itself later down the road if it needs to be taken care of, which we'll view it. And I don't know, if it was a clean hit or it was just a bad timing for Heats there, but I really like the way. They're smart. They're trying to get us off our game, and we held it together. We didn't want to go 4-4 with a team like that. And get in the box with being down guys.
Yeah, so basically what he said right before that, I want to read this part. He said, I saw it once after on the bench, didn't look at it in intermission. It looked fine for my first view, that it was a clean hit. I'm going to look at it again. Wilson's a big guy. I like the way our players didn't get caught in, and that was the part of the quote you heard. But I wanted to make sure we mentioned that first part as well that we didn't include there, but definitely worth mentioning. That again, Foote even said like on his first view might have looked like a clean hit. Said he's going to look at it again. I'm going to be curious if his thoughts change at all in the coming days when he talks about it again. But ultimately, I think I agree with him. Like, not the cleanest hit in the world, but not worthy of a suspension or anything. Really unfortunate of who it happened to. But like that is a hockey hit. It's a little bit late, and I think it could have been 2 minutes for interference as a result.
It's also just unfortunate that Hedel got caught looking at his pass after making it. I think that's the part that if he had been prepared for that contact and had his head on a swivel a little bit more, he probably could have braced himself. Exactly. I think that's what really caused some of the damage there, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's a super chat here. It's from Swerve and Irvin in the chat. 279. Appreciate the super chat. He said, "Is reminiscent of Mitchell on Taves in 2009." I don't remember that hit off the top of my head. Jacob will pull it up for later in anyone else. But thank you for the super chat. We'll get to that hit. We'll see if we can find it, if Jacob can find it. But if you want to make sure your question or comment gets on the show, hit us with a super chat. Proceeds from our super chat go to the BC Mental Health Foundation, changing the face of mental health and addiction by supporting breakthroughs in care, public understanding, research, and knowledge exchange. Now, I did want to say this as well. Aaron Rome, just got brought up by Nick Pochek. He said, I don't hate the hit, the Wilson on Hedl, but it's another painful reminder of Colin Campbell's suspension of Aaron Rome for basically the same thing. I absolutely agree. That was the first thing that came to my mind, was the Aaron Rome hit on Nathan Horton. But the takeaway wasn't, and it was like it was at the time, is like that shouldn't have been a suspension, especially in the Cup final. It shouldn't have been a suspension. So if you don't think that should have been a suspension, you shouldn't think this, which isn't even as bad as the Rome hit on Horton. Like the Rome hit on Horton at least was charging, like it was actually charging. But this one, like I don't know. Okay, people are saying the Mitchell hit was way worse. Jacob's working on it, so we'll get it.
I've got it right now. I just need about 2 seconds.
Okay, well, Jacob's gonna pull it up,
and then
for those on
we
podcast,
can take a look.
Jacob found that quick enough that I think you could just search on YouTube Mitchell on Tays hit, and you would find it. Okay, here it is. Oh, I remember this. Unfortunately, I remember this. Yep.
Oh, that's worse for sure.
That's way worse. That was that not to the head? Like that was actually to the head? Oh, that sucks. All right, we're about to see it again.
Oh,
I mean, at least he had the puck.
Yeah.
But that one
worse.
was to the head. Yeah, I do remember that one.
Yeah. What do you think of the response, Harm? The response to the hit? Because I gotta say, a lot of positives this weekend. Nobody went after Jason Dickinson. I wanted some blood. I'll be honest. I wanted some blood for that one. And you talked a big game. And I'm not saying you specifically about Kiefer Sherwood, but like, you know, Kiefer Sherwood had the comment after the game in Chicago against Chicago where he said like he's gonna have to answer the bell next year for that. What changed? Like, what happened? Did they make up over the offseason? Like, what happened since then? Because I was thinking we were going to see some fireworks. Nothing happened. And then Hedl gets hit again, you know, and in Washington. And look, Linus Karlsson, I will say this. Linus Karlsson with an expert maneuver of take the back. He grabbed Wilson from behind and just didn't let go. It's like, you don't want to be face-to-face with Tom Wilson in that. And Linus Karlsson did a great job, so shout out to him. Evander Kane came in late, but there was no response beyond that. Foote complimented his guys for not chasing Wilson around for the rest of the game. They needed to get the 2 points. They did it. What do you think of the response?
It's nuanced because also just the idea of chasing around Tom Wilson you're asking to die. Chasing around Tom Wilson a little bit. That dude is one of the most intimidating, maybe the most intimidating player in the league right now. Because he's not
Kane? You don't think Kane could chase him around a little bit?
I think he's the only one that could have done it.
And he didn't. Instead, he makes a drop pass. Instead, he makes a drop pass with the net empty that just made everybody have a heart attack.
But also, the reason I'm not going to flame Kane for that is because sometimes you don't know when you don't know what's happening sort of away from the cameras, in the sense that I remember the season opener against Calgary. I was in the building from it watching from the press box, and I remember after Uyghur's hit on Pettersson, there was an offensive zone draw for the Flames where Kane, I think, was pretty clearly motioning with his gloves to Uyghur to ask to fight, and Uyghur kind of shook him off. But I don't even know if the broadcast cameras caught that. And so you might have walked away from that thinking, oh, Uyghur didn't, or Kane didn't do anything on Uyghur. But it's like, what can you do when a guy doesn't want to drop the gloves? So that's the only reason I'm going to hold back a little bit, is I don't know the context of what Kane maybe was or wasn't trying to do. But yeah, he's the one guy I would have looked at to say he's the heavyweight in the lineup, and that's what you want him in lineup for. I wonder how much of it also was, as Adam Foote said, just really focused on wanting to walk away with 2 points. And he specifically said, we don't want to go 4-on-4 against a dangerous Capitals team. Curious what his messaging to the team specifically was. It's nuanced. I would have liked to have seen them go after Wilson a little bit more, but that's also way easier for me to say when I'm not on the ice. Tom Wilson is a scary, scary dude.
Fair enough.
I mean, Wilson, I don't know if you've noticed, I think he's the only player in the NHL where when he's in on the forecheck, defenders hear his footsteps and bail on defense's own retrievals. There was even one DPD had where, and I don't blame him for this at all. He saw Wilson come in on the forecheck. Demko was sort of playing the puck. It was sort of like rimmed around, and Demko was going to leave it for DPD, and DPD just like didn't go in for it, and it turned into sort of like a turnover. But that was clearly Tom Wilson is going to blow me up on the forecheck, and I'm afraid of that. Whereas even a guy like Kiefer Sherwood doesn't have that impact no matter how many hits he throws. So it's a lot easier for us outsiders, median fans to say, yeah, go take a run.
Get in there.
Tom Wilson. Like
Nick Pochek in the chat said, Foot was as hard-nosed as they come as a player. If he's telling his guys not to get retribution, I'll take his judgment. Fair enough.
Yeah, and especially if Foot sounded like a coach that didn't think it was that egregious or of a hit. And so that might have been part of it, that perhaps the team looked at it as not that dirty. Plus, with the context of wanting to win the game, and other than Kane, who do you have in the lineup that's going to go after Wilson anyway, realistically? I think all that factored into it.
All right. For like the 400th time, I'll just say this team misses Nikita Zadorov. Just another reminder. Did you have anything else you wanted to get to in anyone else?
A little quick note. I wanted to say, interesting that in the 6-on-5 when they were defending, that DPD was out there for a shift in the last minute. I think that's a good endorsement about the increasing trust that Foot has in him, because I was watching who Foot was rolling out. Foot could have gone to Quinn Hughes in that situation if he wanted to. So the fact that he leaned on DPD thinking, all right, this is a bigger body that's going to win battles, maybe protect the front of the net a little bit better, I think that's a key sign to throw out such a young rookie, essentially, in a high-stakes game like that, where the Capitals were pressing and had the Canucks on the ropes. That's massive. And then the other thing from a big picture perspective, and I wanted to save this towards the end because I didn't want to undermine or discredit any of what the Canucks accomplished on the road trip. These were character, gutsy wins. But it is worth mentioning, especially when we're talking about the process and the future outlook. They have had some bounces so far this season. First of all, they've faced 3 backup goaltenders, and that doesn't even include Dustin Wolf on the second leg of a back-to-back. So they've been a little bit fortunate on that front in the early going. And it's a small sample, obviously, but the Canucks have the highest PDO at 5-on-5 in the NHL right now, which isn't just off on the back of their goaltending. They're also shooting over 13%. So the number of goals that they've been pumping in lately, like they're gonna have to start creating more shots and chances, because I don't think the rate at which they're converting on is gonna last forever. And especially now that Heedle's hurt and you're missing his speed off the rush and what he does on zone entries, and even in that Washington game, him driving the net is what caused the chaos for Tyler Myers' goal. I am still a little bit worried about them offensively moving forward.
I just hope they keep riding that PDO, because the last time we had this conversation, they won the division. So
well, and this is a key part, right? Is first of all, they built up such an insane lead that they only needed to play at a 95 point, like a 90-ish point pace to make the playoffs anyway.
Yeah.
But also, secondly, this is the interesting thing. In the second half, they became an elite defensive team. Their process caught up, and so the Magic shooting percentage wise, you kind of saw it post All-Star break that year, where all right, now they're struggling to score goals, but because they were so robust defensively and gave up nothing off the rush, they were still able to win games down the stretch and be competitive in the playoffs. That's something that, we'll see how long the bender kind of lasts. And I'm not too worried about the process at all. I know some people might point out their underlying numbers. They've been outshot, this and that and whatever, but I don't put too much stock into that, because the last 3 games have been very tough tests in the sense that it was a loaded Dallas team, on the road that you're playing, Chicago on the second leg of a back-to-back, and Washington as your third game in less than 72 hours. Like, I expect the Canucks to get outplayed. And even defending that third period, the fact that the Canucks are scrambling and they relied a lot on Demko, that's normal. That doesn't concern me whatsoever because of the rest disadvantage they were at and because how good the Capitals are offensively. So I'm not worried about the process. I'm not saying, oh, they've just been lucky, but it is nuanced to kind of add to the conversation that this has been really impressive. But another challenge on top of the injuries is going to be if your finishing luck starts to slow down a little bit, what are your other outs to manufacture offense?
Some people are throwing some names around in the chat of who to get to replace Philip Hedl. Elias Lindholm's getting thrown around, Harm. I know you love that.
No, I don't
Jared
love
McCann-
it. Please don't put that. Please don't put words in my mouth.
What are you talking about? You loved it earlier in the year. You were saying it when they were totally healthy. Go get me Elias Lindholm. You were banging the table.
Stop putting words in my mouth. I hate it. Anyway, I'm not going to rehash that.
And that's the thing. I loved the take by the end. I absolutely loved the take.
Well, my take was, hey, could the Canucks explore that?
Yeah.
Like, I could see the Canucks maybe exploring it. And I think after some of us did a little bit more digging, I'm not sure that the Canucks are going to actually turn over that stone anyway. But even with the contract, like he's not the solution I'd want to see anyway.
Bo Horvat thrown around. Jared McCann being thrown around.
The Islanders aren't going to trade Horvat. And
Also,
Seattle's
the Kraken-
3-0-2.
I was just gonna say the Kraken are better than the Kings this year. Kraken are gonna win. Kraken are gonna make the playoffs. Like, they're gonna be a wild card team. They're the Wagon Flames of last year. How I talked about the Flames. I'm totally buying Seattle stock right now.
You buy any team stock 5 games into the season.
That's fair. Yeah, and I did it in 23-24 with the Canucks. Everybody's like, "Oh, PDO. Oh, lucky for you."
Come
I can't
on.
read. I don't know what PDO stands for, so
I think one of our first shows was me saying yes, they're going to regress, but I'm not worried about them as a team. They're going to comfortably make the playoffs.
Who? The Canucks in 23-24?
Yeah, 100%.
No, I'm not saying you weren't. I'm just saying I make my declarations after 5 games. Some people say you got to wait 20 games.
How are your Wagon Flames doing?
Well, they were fine last year. What are you talking about?
They didn't make
I
the
was right about
playoffs.
that. Oh, you can't even revisionist history this because you even said
They were more
well,
competitive.
You were right.
But they didn't
about
make the
Flames.
playoffs. What I'm saying is don't make any bold predictions about like Kraken are going to make the playoffs unless you're actually going to like
Write it down, Jacob. Write it down.
Can I
Kraken
bet
make the
against
playoffs.
that?
Yeah, do it. Kraken
Okay,
make the
so
playoffs.
do we have our first bet
Yep.
of the season here?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
what are you guys offering up?
Well, I mean, Quads didn't really offer up on his dinner last time anyway. So this is double or nothing on a
Okay, if
dinner?
the Kraken make the playoffs, I win. If the Kraken don't, you lose. Dude, they're making the playoffs. They're for sure making the playoffs.
How could you say that?
Because
Like, they
he's
could,
high,
but
he's
they're-
high on
they're-
the Mariners.
because-
Seattle's a winning sports town now. You know, the Seahawks are good. The Mariners are 1 win away from the World Series. So inevitably the Seattle Kraken are making the playoffs, right, Quads?
Dude, the Kraken's process has actually been good. Like, they haven't, I don't know, I haven't looked at their PDO, whatever that means, but their process has actually been good. Like, I've really liked what I've seen from them. And the thing is, Harm, is like they're only going to get better, you would think, with some of these young guys. And also, like, let's not forget that Mason Marchment, who was like a cap dump, he's looked really good for them so far. What are his actual numbers? I should actually know this. But like, I've watched some Kraken games. They're good, man. And like, if Shane Wright arrives, that's your third line center. What's Marchment done? All right, goal and 3 assists through 5 games. It's fine, but like his process has looked really good. I've actually really, like, I'm not just saying this, I've actually really liked what I've seen from the Kraken so far this year.
Okay, fair. I still think they're mediocre and would bet against them making it, but
It'll be like a wild
I
card.
see your
That's what makes it.
your upside case, but I think part of it is also what I said before the season started. I think the West is just so deep. Like,
That's
how many teams are they going to have to? Okay, so
think
what's
they're
their
better
path to
than-
making the playoffs?
They're better than the Kings. They're better than the Kings.
Okay, but look at the Pacific, right? Edmonton and
Mhm.
Vegas. I think we're assuming, even though Edmonton's off to a slow start, who cares? It's the third year in a row they're off to a slow start. They're going to figure it out. Edmonton and Vegas, you would assume are locks in the
Yeah.
Pacific. And then for the third spot, are you then saying that it's like you can only have one of the Canucks or Seattle in that third spot? Unless you're saying that they're going to be.
I would like to revise this because this is what I should have said last year too. It'll be like last year's Calgary Flames. That's what the Kraken are now. They're going to battle with the Canucks for a playoff spot down the stretch. Like this is going. This is what I'm changing.
That's a more realistic take.
Either going to be the Kraken or the Canucks. Like they're I guess what I'm really trying to say, all bits aside, is that like that's the team to watch if you're a Canucks fan this year. Like they're going to be a threat this year down the stretch. I would think, at least. I think it's going to be them that is the one that we kind of keep our eye on down the stretch. Like, you're not Vegas, Edmonton. Edmonton's having their annual slow start. It's no big deal. It's not something people should be freaking out about. Edmonton's going to win, but this Seattle team, like it's going to be one that we watch down the stretch, I think.
Yeah, them being competitive I can agree with that.
Are there any other shocks early in the year just before we kind of close out here, just around the league? Like
Detroit, 5 of 6 that they've won.
That one surprised you? I thought Detroit would be good this year. I didn't think they'd be this good. Like they're not going to finish top of the Atlantic, but like I thought they'd be on the they'll probably even out as being like a fringe playoff team. Like I think they'll be kind of in that.
Even to make the playoffs, it's the same. It's similar to what we've been saying about the West, where it's just so stacked. And Detroit making the playoffs probably has to come at the expense of Ottawa missing. And I don't know how many people were calling for a team like the Sens to miss. And I'm with Pete when we were talking about the Lightning, where I'm fairly confident that they'll bounce back, especially because I don't like their blue line, and that worries me from a cup contention standpoint. But I kind of disagree with the idea that Tampa's a one-line team because you have Brandon Hagel who's a 90-point player in your second line.
Yeah, that's true.
You also have Anthony Cirelli on that line. You've got their third line. They got like Bjorkstrand and Yanni Gord. This isn't like Tampa was a one-line team 2 years ago. I think their forward group top to bottom, especially once they get Nick Paul back, who I think he for sure missed the start of the season. I don't know for certain if he's back yet. Their forward group plus Vasilevsky rounding into form, I think will allow them to make it back in. Detroit's going to be interesting. I want to watch more of their games and see how they see whether come to my conclusion on whether I think they're legit or not. Obviously Larkin's been unbelievable. That power play's nasty. They're getting contributions from some of their young guys, but it's going to be tough in the East. This is what I think about parity is there are a lot of teams that you could see the case for them making the playoffs. Where parity kind of lacks is when it comes to that inner circle of the top 5 to 6 teams that are true cup contenders. That's where it's been the same teams in the mix every year.
It's a lot of mid. There's a lot of mid out there.
Yeah.
I want to say this, speaking of mid, Spencer Knight, phenomenal for the Chicago Blackhawks start the year. Like been, I think by most advanced stats, one of the best goalies in the league. He's given them a fighting shot. As exciting as Chicago has been with their unbelievable start right now, 3-2, and 2 overtime losses in there as well. Spencer Knight's been so fun. Spencer Knight's been great.
Yeah, he's their goalie of I was gonna say of the future, but of the present as well.
Yeah.
And that's a team that you expect to level out and fall back to earth at some point as well. But for Chicago, it's really important for them to at least be more competitive than they were last year and be in the battle every night. And man, the difference that having a top-notch goaltender can make when you're a young team that's going to make defensive mistakes, especially on that blue line where they really lack experience and don't have many veterans. It helps a lot to have a goaltender that can bail you out and at least help make games feel closer, even if you're ultimately outplayed most nights out of 82.
Jacob, did you have something?
Yeah, I wanted to. You put out the call to the chat on what's been surprising. Mobs saying no points for Ehlers and Svechnikov while Carolina is 5-0-0, and I think that is one of the most insane things.
That is a wild stat. I didn't know that.
That 2 of their three best forwards or four best forwards, you could argue, have no points. And I added Jalen Chatfield has 2 assists, so he's got more points than both of those guys. And Seth Jarvis, 6 goals in 5 games to start the season. So he's picked up the slack from the other stars in Carolina. And man, if those 2 guys get going, what's Carolina's season going to look like?
You know who Seth Jarvis is? He's like Connor Garland on steroids.
I love it. That's a great yes.
And that's why I love watching Seth Jarvis play. And he was a little bit similar when Jarvis was even younger to Garland, where his finishing wasn't the best. So he was a classic Carolina Hurricanes player where like amazing, dominant, best of the league kind of underlying numbers and scrappy motor type who just wins battles all over the ice, drives play. But the point totals weren't always elite because he just wasn't the best finisher. So now see him start to finish better. Like he's going to be so fun to watch. And I assume he's going to make the Olympic team again at this rate.
Little Boston pointing out Jarvis has 4 game-winning goals. And he has 6. So 4 game-winning goals.
He's such a dog.
Yeah, that's awesome. Did you see the final thing before we wrap up here? Did you see they did the like going home or the hometown visit with Jarvis, and his childhood bedroom had a life-size Sidney Crosby poster on the door?
No, I didn't see that.
Oh, it's great. It's really good content. And he was just like, okay, that's embarrassing. And obviously he's super, super Canadian accent. And he's like, I play this guy like 4 times a year, and you're going to show that I got the life-size poster of my childhood bedroom. Anyways, really, really funny. Try to seek it out if you can, folks. All right. Anything else from either of you?
No, I think I'm good.
The last thing I'll say is like how old do you think Seth Jarvis actually is?
24. Isn't he really young?
23.
Yeah, he's 23 years old.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't like players being younger than me. I'm going to be honest with you. That's starting to mess with me a little bit. Not a fan.
Also,
not a fan.
This is interesting. Do you know that pick was the one that the Leafs gave up to get rid of Patrick Marleau's contract?
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
13th overall in 2020.
All I'm going to say is I remember when I was first starting at The Athletic, this was back when I was a part-timer, I was saying, hey, the Canucks should go out and target that Leafs first-round pick because they're probably going to have to use it to get off of the last year of Marleau's deal. And that was at a time when the Canucks never wanted to take on dead cap. Spent to the cap, but then would blow it on Jay Beagles and Louis Ericsson's and Antoine Roussel's. Could have had an opportunity to take on Marleau and end up in a position where he could draft a Seth Jarvis, but
who'd they take that year? Wasn't it Yanni Yermo was their first pick?
Yeah, they didn't have
third.
They didn't.
Round, no?
They didn't have a pick until the 3rd round, and it was Yanni Yermo.
Well, when you're competing the way they are, you don't have first and second round picks. Man, what a crazy thing to look back on. Thank you, Harm. Thanks for bringing that up. That's good. Okay, Bet365 bet of the day. The Seattle Kraken are playing the Philadelphia Flyers. The Kraken, for some reason, are underdogs in Philly. Plus 115. You can get Kraken money line. We're hammering it. We're hammering that. Yeah, that's our bet of the day. Brought to you by Bet365. Whatever your bet is, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app and get in on the game. Use the code NATION at Bet365. Must be 19 plus to play. If you choose to play, please play responsibly. All right, write it down, Jacob. Kraken. Watch them all year long. Keep an eye on it. All right, we'll close it out there. For my co-host Harmon Dial and our technical producer Jacob Czar, my name is Jacob Jelly. Thanks so much for this episode of Canucks Conversation.
Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live chat every day with us, folks.